Hello and welcome back. Today I'm here with more updates. As we know, Prince Harry is now back in the witness box for the second day of his legal battle with MGN over alleged unlawful information gathering. On the second day of testimony by Prince Harry, he was taken through a sample of articles by MGN's barrister Andrew Green KC. So the article he turned to was a 2005 People article headlined, "Harry, Carry" in quotes. It claimed the Duke of Sussex was being let off grueling runs at Sandhurst Military Academy due to an injury. Green said Clarence House, the former residence for the then Prince Charles, released a full statement providing an update about Harry's knee injury. The statement also included a quote from Harry himself. In his witness statement, Harry said he was not freely discussing his health or injuries. Green asked, quote, "Is that an entirely accurate statement?" Prince Harry replied, yes. He added that he had also become mistrustful of the medical staff at Sandhurst. So he went on to ask him about more stories, and Green called up Harry on an earlier statement that he had made about stories that were not in the, quote, public interest. And Harry said there's a difference between public interest and what interests the public. Green suggested that a story about a royal receiving preferential treatment at a military academy or stories about a royal taking drugs might be, quote, public interest. Prince Harry disagreed and said they were not. So Green asked him, what constitutes a public interest story? Prince Harry replied, I'm not entirely sure, other than speculating. A life-threatening injury? Harry continued, I'm sure there are others. So Prince Harry told the court that all articles published about him were distressing at the time, distressing to go through with his legal team, and more distressing going through them again in court. Green turned to an article about Harry allegedly going to the strip club Spearmint Rhino and his then-girlfriend Chelsea Davy being angered by this. In a witness statement, Prince Harry said he believed phones must have been hacked to inform the story. Green turned to coverage by the News of the World, which led to the arrest and conviction of a journalist, Clive Goodman, and private investigator Glenn Mulclare for hacking of Harry's phone and phones around him. Green is suggesting that the repercussions were so severe for Goodman and Mulclare that it would effectively deter any other journalists, including those at Mirror Group titles, from attempting to hack Harry's phone. So circling back to phone hacking, Prince Harry claimed that the police initially did not know, quote, how to deal with phone hacking allegations. When asked about the arrests of former News of the World journalist Clive Goodman and Glenn Mulclare, the Duke said he believed Scotland Yard's focus was understandably on that newspaper. But the barrister Andrew Green countered that the investigation was, quote, broader. The Duke replied, quote, I don't think anyone, even the police, knew how to deal with it at first. At the time, we didn't know there was voicemail hacking. No one did. I believe at the time, no one really knew how that information could have got out. The understanding from the palace was that this was probably a one-off, end quote. Harry also told the court that he had never spoken to anyone at the palace about his relationship with Chelsea Davy. Green was suggesting that a well-connected source within the palace was passing information to the Mirror about Harry's relationship. So Green turned to another article which suggested that Harry was, quote, celebrating breaking up with Davy, to which Harry said, which seems a bit mean, in quotes. Harry said it was, quote, hurtful to read stories that appeared gleeful about his breakup with Chelsea Davy. Hooray, Harry's dumped, in quotes, was hurtful to say the least. That such a private moment was turned into a bit of a laugh, Harry said. The level of surveillance I was under was quite something, but Green for the Mirror suggested that it was not celebrating Harry being dumped. Green also turned to another article about Harry's relationship with Chelsea. The article had a detail about the couple going on a, quote, trial separation. In his witness statement, Harry said voicemails would have been exchanged with Davy at the time. Harry told the court he was also aware that private investigators were used in connection to the article. Green suggested that the detail that Davy suggested a, quote, trial separation had featured in an earlier article by the Mail on Sunday published the day before the Mirror article in question. Green also turned to a Reuters report which picked up on the Mail on Sunday's article, which Green said reflects that one media outlet picks up what is said in another. Harry added that it also encouraged other media outlets to push the story on. The Mirror article currently in question contained the detail that Harry only visited Davy once in Leeds. Green said this could be traced back to earlier media coverage. Harry said he was not aware but accepted that that could be correct. The Duke of Sussex said that many quotes attributed to friends, but he added, quote, "At this point, myself and Chelsea were not sharing anything with anyone." And also the Duke of Sussex alleged that phone hacking by journalists was a risk, quote, "worth the reward." As he was being cross-examined, Harry was asked to answer questions in relation to an article in April 2006. This was a People article reporting his ex-girlfriend Chelsea Davy had fury, in quotes, over his boozy evening at a lap dancing club, in quotes. Mr. Green said a News of the World article around the same time mentioned a voicemail that the Duke's brother had left for him, imitating Chelsea Davy's voice. The barrister said this story was an important step leading to the police arresting News of the World journalist Clive Goodman and private investigator Glenn Mulclare, who were both later convicted over phone hacking. Mr. Green said no MGN journalists were arrested at the time of a police investigation, adding that journalists would have later been taking an, quote, "enormous risk by hacking Harry's phone or those around him." To which the Duke said, quote, "I think there was a risk right from the beginning. I believe the risk is worth the reward for them," end quote. So Green asked Prince Harry about references made to call data in his witness statement. Green said that there is not a single item of call data at any time between Harry's phone and any Mirror Group journalist. Green asked him, quote, "Do you think the absence of call data suggests you were not hacked by any MGN journalist?" "Absolutely not," Prince Harry replied. "If the court finds you were not hacked by MGN, would you be relieved or disappointed?" Green asked. Prince Harry said phone hacking had been done on an industrial scale across 3 of the papers and said any decision with his claim, he would, quote, "feel some injustice if it wasn't accepted." Green asked, "You want to have a phone hacked?" Prince Harry replied, "Nobody wants to have a phone hacked." So as we know, Prince Harry had revealed in a separate court case that the publisher of The Sun had secretly paid Prince William, his brother, a financial settlement to drop his phone hacking claim. In court today, Harry put a value on that deal, suggesting Prince William was personally paid £1 million by Rupert Murdoch's media business in 2020. So Andrew Green also turned to information in a People article about the Duke using the computer room at Sandhurst to email his then-girlfriend Chelsea Davy and suggested someone at the military academy could have seen him doing so. And Harry said, quote, "Unless somebody was watching me specifically for that, no, I don't believe so." Asked if he believed that information came from unlawful information gathering, the Duke replied, quote, "Yes, my lord, I have no idea how anybody would know." Responding to another question about whose phone could have been hacked to obtain that information, Harry said, quote, "I believe the Mirror Group had Chelsea's number at this time. I'm not entirely sure my girlfriend would have given Mirror Group her number, and also, at the time, my number was in journalist Nick Buckley's Palm Pilot, and he was a prolific hacker," end quote. Prince Harry also said that stories about his injuries at school at Sandhurst made him stop trusting doctors and medics at those institutions, after describing yesterday how a Mirror article about him breaking his thumb left him feeling he could not, quote, "trust the doctors there." And the Duke of Sussex told the court today that a story about him injuring his knee at Sandhurst also left him with, quote, "distrust of the military academy's medics." So this is also quite standout as we circle back to the first article in this where he was asked about Harry Carey that was published in 2005, where they said that the article included quotes from supposed insiders, in quotes, about information about Harry using a computer to email his then-girlfriend Chelsea. And this was what he said in his witness statement, quote, "I was not going around freely discussing any medical issues or injuries that I had. I was almost conditioned to feel guarded at this point in my life, worrying I couldn't trust anyone for fear it would end up being splashed across the tabloids, end quote. He also said in a statement, quote, I can't remember the specifics of how long I was speaking to Chelsea over email at this time. I wasn't sharing this information with my colleagues who I'd only just met, least of all because that kind of thing would have just made me seem soft. But also because me and Chelsea were so protective of our relationship and wanted people to know as little as possible for fear of leaks, end quote. Harry also said he was shown evidence of payments to a private investigator from the period and details of a phone call to a number used by a press secretary to then Prince Charles, BBC News reported. Turning to an article from the Sunday Mirror from December 2007, which had a photograph of Prince Harry's former girlfriend Chelsea Davy walking away from his car in the driveway of Kensington Palace. The newspaper said the story was, quote, proof they were back together. In his witness statement, the prince said, quote, there weren't routinely photographers waiting at this entrance unless something big was happening. Quote, the reason I had dropped her off where I did was to avoid any members of the public seeing us by chance. So, what are the chances of someone waiting at the archway at the specific moment I dropped her off with a camera ready? End quote. Harry also said there was evidence that the newspaper received invoices from 2 investigators which were both billed as, quote, Chelsea Watch. So you can see right there the image of Chelsea. Isn't that so intriguing? It does look like surveillance. It doesn't even look like a newspaper article. It just looks like some kind of surveillance document. So share your thoughts on that. That is strong evidence in my opinion. So Harry went on to say that the photographer waiting for him was incredibly suspicious, he said. The Mirror Group lawyer Andrew Green spent a few minutes on a Daily Mirror story from 2008 detailing that Prince Harry's phone was stolen in Lesotho. The story said the thief was caught 2 days later and his contacts had not been accessed. And the Mirror Group said the story was legitimately obtained from local officials and its newspaper had lifted a line from the Telegraph that royal sources had confirmed the phone had been password protected. In a statement, Harry said, quote, I don't understand how the defendant's journalists could know that my contacts or texts weren't accessed. I'm not even sure I knew that, given the phone was missing for a few days, end quote. So let's turn now to another story. This is now as we focus on the split between Harry and Chelsea. It was claimed that he loved the army more than her, and they had, quote, several tense meetings the week before. In his witness statement, Harry said, quote, other details reported included that I was understood to have spoken to my father about my relationship with Chelsea, end quote. The Duke said that there were 3 suspicious calls made by journalists from the Mirror Group newspapers to Davy's phone the day before the story. Quote, Chelsea would not have given her number to any journalist, let alone speak to them, end quote, he said. Seeing the call data in black and white just makes me realize how much the defendant's journalists would have heard it's violating, end quote. So once again, the lawyer for MGN has been stressing that a lot of the information in the Sunday Mirror article about the relationship breakdown between him and Chelsea had already been reported by other news media outlets. The lawyer asked, quote, are you aware that in fact the story of the split and the reasons for it were broken by the News of the World the day before the article by the Sunday Mirror? End quote, the lawyer asked. And Harry responded, quote, I'm not, but that doesn't surprise me, end quote. So Harry once again said that the article was, quote, suspicious because quotes are attributed to friends of the couple, and he also referenced the very, quote, expensive payments outlined in his witness statement. So moving on in the timeline, in a statement, Prince Harry remembered that the paparazzi were hiding underneath a car outside the apartment where he was meeting the late TV presenter Caroline Flack. So there was an article in The People about a dinner party with Caroline and his close confidant, Mark Dyer. So he said this, quote, I was so shocked and livid that the 2 photographers from Icon Pictures knew where we would be and were already there waiting for us to arrive. quote, Marco and I exchanged voicemails about the night we had planned, end quote. He went on to say, quote, there's no way I could have been followed. Only Marco, Caroline, and I knew of the plans. There was only a couple of other people invited, and I don't think they knew that Caroline would be joining us, end quote. So Harry went on to allege that Icon Pictures, the source of the story, had stalked him for a decade, adding, quote, it's even more disturbing to know that they were there for at least 2 nights outside my friend Marco Dyer's house in London, end quote. The publisher's lawyer says Icon also sold similar photos to the Mail on Sunday. The lawyer said, quote, and would you agree that if the journalist and the people had known about this story from phone hacking, they wouldn't have paid £2,500 to a journalist for this material, end quote? In response, Harry said, the story makes it clear that photographers were there before I got there. They saw me arriving. The evening was specifically between me and Caroline, who is no longer with us, end quote. So in an article that was printed in April 2009, which talked about Harry, quote, bombarding Chelsea with calls in an attempt to win her back, Prince Harry said that again felt, quote, very suspicious. He went on to say, quote, I would not have told anyone if I was calling Chelsea regularly, and given the way Chelsea also had been guarded with who she tells information to, I have no idea who the, quote, close pal could be that the defendant's journalists are attributing some of the information to, end quote. So Harry was also asked about how he came to sue the Mirror Group, and he said that until he, quote, bumped into David Sherborne, the lawyer who is representing him in this case in France in 2018, and he also said he detailed that encounter in his book Spare, that is when he sought counsel from him on how to deal with the situation. He told the court that even if he had seen the articles before this, he would not have been allowed to make a claim. He said, quote, it was all contained within the palace, and even if I wanted to, I wouldn't be allowed to make a claim, end quote. The prince said in response to a question about where he got the idea of destruction of evidence by Mirror Group, and he said, my legal team. So Andrew Green wrapped up for the Mirror, and according to reports that people were saying Harry and him had a few tense moments. There was a point where, I'll paraphrase, the lawyer told Harry that it was him asking him the questions, and the lawyer did not want Harry asking him questions. So, they had their back and forth moments, but all in all, people are saying that Harry, he kept his cool and he tried to answer as forthrightly as possible and try and keep composure. So that hill is over with. So he wrapped up for the Mirror in this fashion. He asked the prince to identify a single voicemail that he knows was hacked. Harry said, quote, there's hard evidence of suspiciousness, end quote. He also added, quote, I believe that phone hacking started at the Mirror Group, end quote. The lawyer replied, quote, you say you were hacked over a 15-year period. Yes, Harry said. And he went on to ask him, quote, are you claiming damages on the basis that your phone is hacked on a daily basis, end quote. It could have been, answered Harry. I simply don't know, my lord, and that's part of the reason why I'm here, end quote. So the cross-examination is over, and as I said, Prince Harry seemed to only get stronger and stronger in his replies. According to the BBC, they said that he was even sparring with his questioner, and his whole legal team now is, of course, having an inner sigh of relief for how well Prince Harry handled himself on the stand. And of course, the royalists were also breathing a huge sigh of relief that Prince Harry, being in the witness box, did not produce any noteworthy stories about the rest of the royal family. So that's over with. So hooray for Harry after more than 7 hours of cross-examination. Now we move forward into the next step of David Sherborne in his re-examination of the Duke of Sussex. So Mr. Sherborne started by saying, quote, given the time, I'm not going to take you back through every single article. And the Duke responded, thank you, which drew laughter in the court. So the barrister began by addressing the lack of any call data showing that he had received calls from Mirror Group journalists. Asked whether he means that no one actually hacked his phone, Harry replied that he believed, quote, burner phones were deployed, adding, I believe that they would have gone to extreme lengths to cover their tracks. So this was also quite standout. Prince Harry told the court he once found a tracking device on the car belonging to Chelsea Davy. At the time, the newspapers were interested in a, quote, make-or-break holiday Harry had with Davy. Prince Harry alleged that the device was placed by a private investigator, Mike Baer, who the prince had also accused in other cases of targeting him. He said a friend, Mark Dyer, had also found a tracking device on his car. So Prince Harry's lawyer, David Sherborne, brought up an article in The People in September 2008, marked as an exclusive that said he had been, quote, banned from returning to military service in Afghanistan. He asked the Duke of Sussex if he believed he was speculating that unlawful information gathering had taken place for that story. He said, "No, I do not." After a small pause, he went on to say, quote, "For my whole life, the press have misled me, have covered up wrongdoing. So to be sitting in court knowing that the defense has the evidence in front of them, and Mr. Green, the publisher's lawyer, says I'm speculating, I'm not entirely sure what to say about that," end quote. Sherborne also asked Harry about the MGN's barrister's repeated accusation that the Duke's claim of illegal information gathering is in the, quote, realm of speculation. Harry replied that he did not believe he was speculating and added the phrase, quote, "in the realms of speculation was used as a headline this morning against me," end quote. He may have been alluding to Daily Mail, which appeared to be the only national newspaper with the quote prominently on its front page. You can see it right there. So as I've said here before, for a lot of people who sometimes have been steered by certain sections of the press to not like Harry, they have to remember that he is actually pursuing legal action against some of these titles. So always keep that in the back of your mind. They chose to lead with that very strong headline, speculation. So it's always good to go beyond those headlines, read the story down to what I like to call the fine print, read it right down to the bottom of the article, because you'll see a lot of information is right there within, and you can come to your own conclusions based on all the evidence that's before you. And once again, as we focus on the article about Harry's ban on him returning to Afghanistan, Harry earlier contended that it was, quote, suspicious that so much had come from a, quote, royal source that Mirror had paid £500. Sherborne said the 500 went to a private investigator and showed Harry a document. He asked him, quote, "Do you believe you were speculating when you suggested unlawful information gathering had been going on in that story?" End quote. Harry said that he was not speculating. So Sherborne, turning back to the story about Caroline Flack, which earlier the court heard had been supplied by a picture agency called Icon, photographers from the agency, quote, stalked and harassed us for decades, end quote, Harry said. He went on to say they were an enormous security issue, in quotes. The article attributes a quote to an onlooker, in quotes, which it was said was in fact one of the photographers. It doesn't surprise me that in this case, the journalists were relying on paparazzi as a source, but also intentionally misleading the readers, attributing it to an onlooker, said Harry in quotes. "Do you have any idea how they knew where you were?" Sherborne asked. "No, but my security team and my brother suspected consistent unlawful activity," end quote. So Prince Harry, according to those in the court, they said he had a bit of an emotional moment as he was lost for words as his barrister asked him about the toll the press interest in his life had taken. Harry fell silent, his head dropped, and he appeared to be fighting back tears. "It's a lot," in quotes, he said in a cracked voice. So Prince Harry with that finished giving his evidence and left the witness box. After asking him a few final questions, the judge said, quote, "Thank you very much, Prince Harry. That really is the end of your evidence," end quote. So with that, there are the points from today. Prince Harry had a strong showing. And as I said there, he had a slight show of emotion coming towards the end. This has really been a huge step for him, and he does continue on with more legal action against a couple of these tabloids in the UK, and we are praying and wishing success for him. What insights Prince Harry has given us so far. He has had to go through a lot, as he said, reliving some of those moments in his life that were quite challenging in having to give this testimony. But this case, as we know, is not criminal. It is a civil trial. Only has to convince the judge of only one of those claims being true, and on the balance of probabilities that his claims are true. So I know a lot of you out there are rooting for him to win. This is not a case of camps. This is a case of right and wrong. This is quite easily black and white. He was a young man growing up in those palace walls, and he was basically being used as fodder to generate news stories. And we've seen in the past that indeed it was proved that he was hacked. And as we saw, that the news of the world journalists got their dues for doing that, and now he only seeks justice against MGN. So share your thoughts on this in the comment section below. And now, as always, a special thank you to those who support this channel financially. A special thank you to you, Marcel Kendrick. Thank you so very much for how kind and supportive you have been towards my work here on YouTube. God bless you. Thank you to Georgia Walker as well. I want to say God bless you. I appreciate you, and I'm so happy that you've chosen to come along with me on this YouTube journey. Thank you. And now a special thank you to those who gave during the last live. Special thank you to one of the channel moderators here on this channel, to Lydia Washington. Thank you so very much for all the ways you choose to engage on this channel, for your kindness and generosity, for always being in the chat. I want to say thank you. Thank you so very much. And thank you as well to Bonnie, who goes by the handle B10Pow. Thank you so much for your comments, for your generosity, and your giving. Thank you so much for being a part of this channel. Thank you. And now a special thank you to Karen Timberlake, who gave through super thanks. Thank you for your love and your kindness towards my work here on this channel. Thank you so much. God bless. Once again, thank you to all who support this channel through your giving. And if you liked this update, don't forget to give it a thumbs up, click subscribe. It truly does help out my channel here. And also, if you want to watch more, click the links in the cards and at the end screens, and I will see you there. Thank you all, and kindly let's keep Prince Harry in our prayers, and let's pray for one another as well. Thank you all for watching. I love you all. Have a great day wherever you are, and I will catch you in the next one. Have a blessed one.